I'm pretty sure you guys can hear me already because I didn't turn on audio input. So hello everybody. It's been a while since I streamed. Yeah, today is mostly break week, but as my Discord activity has shown, I'm definitely not taking a break from anything. Also, the room is quite dark. I'm gonna let some light in. Yeah, this week has been kind of busy. Man at the house had his birthday, and my dearest friend Mono sent me a pizza. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. Things have happened, and I think everything's going on fine. How's everybody? Good evening. It does feel like evening, doesn't it? Because I also do feel kind of slightly sleepy. Also, just like a bright light glaring in my face, like right now. I need this light to see my book a little more clearly. And for those of you not in the know, we are doing War of the Worlds reading today. This is part 3, and we have stopped at chapter 12, which is about, according to this edition, the books by Penguin Classics. Let me just look. Where are we? We are Penguin Classics. It is page 56. Yes, we have stopped at page 56. It's been a while. Yeah, they okay. Bedtime story me. That sounds kind of. I'm not your dad, but I can read you a bedtime story. But the only bedtime story I read is like the one where the ugly barnacle. That's the only bedtime story I know. The other ones are a bit more traumatic. About mostly how kids get eaten by everything. Because kids don't go out in the woods alone, do they? That's a word of advice. Don't ever go out in the woods alone. Anyway, let me just bring out the book real quick. H.G. Wells, there he is. This is a specific version of the books I'm reading right now. It's also been slightly ruined because H.G. Wells is no longer readable on the book. Like, actually, if you look at the book right now, yeah, the H.G. Wells is just missing already. But other than that, the book is alright. It's fine. It's nothing much really. So let me just recount chapter 12 title, What I Saw of the Destruction of Weybridge and Shepperton. And this time I'm gonna make sure I'm properly hydrated, so because I don't want my throat to end up burning again from reading like a dozen stuff. Anyway, there's nothing really much I can talk about except we've been enjoying a lot of War of the Worlds, and I have still been looking through for books that I should read through, and I think there's one short story I would like to read through, but I'll discuss that at the end of the stream. I don't know. It's a bit vague. I'm rubbing my chin, but I don't have a hand animation for rubbing chin. Alright, so let's just turn on the chatting music and then turn on the Tiberian Sun music. Alright, so those of you who are new, I'm going to recite the guides for the reading streams, or at least just what happens. Welcome to the reading stream. Here is how it progresses. I will read the selected story uninterrupted for a chapter, and then after the chapter ends, I will take a 5 minutes break to regain breath, and then that's it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's very simple, and yeah. There's not much I can iterate except, yeah, I'm new. I know you two are not new. There could be ghosts of new people coming in. It's like new people. It's like, oh, how does this work? Anyway, oh yeah, I forgot. I'll let the Tiberian Sun music play in the background first, and then after that I will, because I actually forgot to do something for this stream. Oh my lord. Give me a second. It's also called self-advertising because I do want to make sure that I get multiple people trying to join the reading session. Let me just go and grab the YouTube link. Can I verify you guys can hear me okay? Hello, it's Eiten. Hi, I'm Babushka. Haha, Pascal, it's been a while since I saw you. And it's been a while since you saw me because I'm just because I'm literally just now because I'm now just very lowbrow for this week in particular. So yeah, I understand. How are you, man? How's things in Singapore? Are things going okay over there? Give me a second while I just spread the link to what's other places for a bit, and then after that I can just we can just go on to reading chapter. Your voice is as beautiful as usual. Wow. Oh no, the pastel's talking about as usual. So yeah, I think I heard new things are getting pretty okay over there, I guess. Yeah. Let me just quickly self-advertise because I need more people to listen into my reading, otherwise I'm probably going to go silently insane. Alright, give me a second. I'm just spreading the news, spreading the love, and everything in between. Anything new that you guys have been interested in while I was setting up everything? Anything new? Anything interesting? Give me a second, huh? Oh. Okay, that's weird. Give me a second. Just let me post everything first. Okay, there we go. I say your face is dumb. Your face is dumb, but Susan senses me. Well, that's a you problem because I've tried dozens of times to fix this issue, and Susan either doesn't allow me to have you curse on my stream, or she just doesn't really like you. So sucks to be you, Parcel. Anyway, okay, let's start off. We're gonna be reading chapter 12. I need a cup of water. I need to get my mug. Yeah. That's why you stream on Twitch. No one wants to see anyone read anything on Twitch. SMH, brother. I don't stream on Twitch. I don't want to stream on Twitch. Too much competition. I'm all about when I get the game on. When I start feeling a lot more, like feel more a bit like a Kong, like a. Yeah, I'm just pounding my chest right now. If I feel like that Kong, I will start streaming on Twitch. Until now, I feel like a... Let's see, anyways, kick. Oh, that's uncalled for. That's kind of mean. But it's okay. No one wants to see you either way, Parcel. Yeah, I know. Anyway, fuck it. Almost 10 minutes in, and we've not actually talked we've actually not started the stream yet. Got him. Careful, my mod can ban you. I have a clip specifically in mind so I can just counter people who just come in and shit talk me. You want to come Singapore see me? See you is a different story than killing you, okay? I just want to murder you. Like literally, like murder, actual murder. I'm supposed to be having chills and calm conversation, but now you triggered my murder mode. So I'm gonna find you and kill you again. Fuck it. Sorry. It's okay, Shark. Parcel's just being tsundere again. Anyway, chapter 12. Okay, now prepare yourself. Now your ears are just gonna bleed because my voice is. Yes, give bonk hammer. Yeah, you're gonna get bonk Parcel. Anyway. As the dawn grew brighter, we withdrew from the window from which we had watched the Martians and went very quietly downstairs. The artilleryman agreed with me that the house was no place to stay in. He proposed, he said, to make his way Londonward and thence rejoin his battery. That's actually a word. I did not know that. Number 12 of the Horse Artillery. My plan was to return at once to Leatherhead. And so greatly had the strength of the Martians impressed me that I had determined to take my wife to New Haven, and to go with her out of the country forthwith. For I've already perceived clearly that the country about London must inevitably be the scene of a disastrous struggle before such creatures as these could be destroyed. Between us and Leatherhead, however, lay the third cylinder with its guarding giants. Had I been alone, I think I should have taken my chance and struck across country, but the artilleryman dissuaded me. It's no kindness to the right sort of wife, he said, to make her a widow, and in the end I agreed to go with him, under cover of woods, northward as far as Street Cobham, before I... no, it's not Cobham, it's Cobham, before I parted with him. Thence I would make a big detour by Epsom to reach Leatherhead. Now, before I continue on, I'd like to point out that even though I'm an English major, this is actually the first time I've seen the word tense. let me just search it up. Because this might be a confusing word because I think we're more used to hens. Give me a second. Let me just look out hens. All right. So it's a formal form of being from, and from the dictionary it has said that thence is from a place or source previously mentioned, or as a consequence. So I guess it's like a formal version of hence. So it's very interesting for me to understand this. So I hope you guys know from now onwards what thence is actually, and you don't get confused with another word. And hey, let's start again. I should have started at once, but my companion had been in active service, and he knew better than that. He made me ransack the house for a flask, which he filled with whiskey, and we lined every available pocket with packets of biscuits and slices of meat. Then we crept out of the house, and ran as quickly as we could down the ill-made road by which I had come overnight. The houses seemed deserted. In the road lay a group of 3 charred bodies close together, struck dead by the heat ray. And here and there were things that people had dropped: a clock, a slipper, a silver spoon, and the like poor valuables. At the corner turning up towards the post office, a little cart, filled with boxes and furniture, and horseless, heeled over on a broken wheel. A cash box had been hastily smashed open and thrown under the debris. Except the lodge and the orphanage, which was still on fire, none of the houses had suffered very greatly here. The heat ray had shaved the chimney pots and passed. Yet, save ourselves, there did not seem to be a living soul on Maybury Hill. The majority of the inhabitants had escaped, I suppose, by way of the old Woking Road, the road I had taken when I drove to Leatherhead, or they had hidden. We went down the lane, by the body of the man in black, sodden now from the overnight hail, and broke into the woods at the foot of the hill. We pushed through these towards the railway without meeting a soul. The woods across the line were but the scarred and blackened ruins of woods. For the most part the trees had fallen, but a certain proportion still stood, dismal grey stems with dark brown foliage instead of green. On our side, the fire had done no more than scorch the nearer trees. It had failed to secure its footing. In one place, the woodmen had been at work on Saturdays. Trees, felled and freshly trimmed, lay in the clearing, with heaps of sawdust by the sawing machine and its engines. Hard by was a temperate hut, deserted. There was not a breath of wind this morning, and everything was strangely still. Even the birds were hushed, and as we hurried along, I and the artilleryman talked in whispers and looked now and again over our shoulders. Once or twice we stopped to listen. After a time we drew near the road, and as we did so we heard the clatter of hoofs and saw through the tree stems 3 cavalry soldiers riding slowly towards Woking. We hailed them, and they halted while we hurried towards them. It was a lieutenant and a couple of privates from the 8th Hussars, with a stand like a theodolite, which the artilleryman told me was a heliograph. Okay, now before I continue on again, so I think one thing I can point out is that the words in this book is going to be slightly more archaic than normal, or at least words that are not useful. So let me just look up the meanings of theodolite and heliograph. So a theodolite is a surveyor. It is used to measure horizontal and vertical angles. And I think it's the kind of thing that you see, what's it called? It's the kind of thing you see around the city in Malaysia. And you can see them on roads and when they construct equipment and want to level up a ground. So it works like a leveling device, basically. Like a water ruler, I guess. So a theodolite is a device used to measure levelness of a ground. And a heliograph is a signaling device by which sunlight is reflected in flashes from a movable mirror. So it's like an emergency SOS, basically. If you've seen someone flashing a light, a heliograph works on the same principle, except it doesn't have electric batteries, but is instead powered by the sun. Yes. So I hope this clears up a bit more about the devices brought up here. So yes, let's continue onwards. You are the first man I've seen coming this way this morning, said the lieutenant. What's brewing? His voice and face were eager. The man behind him stared curiously. The artilleryman jumped down the bank into the road and saluted. Gun destroyed last night, sir. Have been hiding. Trying to rejoin battery, sir. You'll come in sight of the Martians, I expect, about half a mile along this road. What the dickens are they like? Asked the lieutenant. Giants in armor, sir. 100 feet high. 3 legs and a body like aluminum, with a mighty great head in a hood, sir. Get out, said the lieutenant. What confounded nonsense. You'll see, sir. They carry a kind of box, sir, that shoots fire and strikes you dead. What do you mean? A gun? No, sir. And the artilleryman began a vivid account of the heat ray. Halfway through, the lieutenant interrupted him and looked up at me. I was still standing on the bank by the side of the road. Do you see it? Said the lieutenant. It's perfectly true, I said. Well, said the lieutenant, I suppose it's my business to see it too. Look here, said the artilleryman. We are detailed here clearing out people out of the houses. You better go along and report yourself to Brigadier General Marvin and tell him all you know. He's at Weybridge. Know the way? I do, I said, and he turned his horse southward again. Half a mile, you say? Said he. At most, I answered, and pointed over the treetops southwards. He thanked me and rode on, and we saw them no more. Further along, we came upon a group of 3 women and 2 children in the road, busy clearing out a labourer's cottage. They had got a hold of a little hand truck and were piling it up with unclean-looking bundles and shabby furniture. They were all too assiduously engaged to talk to us as we passed. Okay, now stop. I apologize because I think there's some words that are assiduous. Okay, so assiduously is with great care and perseverance. So basically, it's a synonym of the word carefully in a very Victorian English sense. So with that in mind, you can just say they were all too carefully engaged to talk with us as we passed. So we're gonna move on. By Byfleet Station, we emerged from the pine trees and found the country calm and peaceful under the morning sunlight. We were far beyond the range of the heat ray there, and had it not been for the silent desertion of some of the houses, the stirring movement of packing in others, and the knot of soldiers standing on the bridge over the railway and staring down the line towards Woking, the day would have seemed very like any other Sunday. Several farm wagons and carts were moving creakily along the roads to Addleston, and suddenly through the gate of a field we saw, across a stretch of flat meadow, 6 12-pounders standing neatly at equal distances pointing towards Woking. The gunners stood by the guns waiting, and the ammunition wagons were at a business-like distance. The men stood almost as if under inspection. "That's good," said I. "They will get one fair shot at any rate." The artilleryman hesitated at the gate. "I shall go on," he said. Further on towards Weybridge, just over the bridge, there were a number of men in white fatigue jackets throwing up a long rampart, and more guns behind. "It's bows and arrows against the lightning, anyhow," said the artilleryman. "They haven't seen that fire beam yet." The officers who were not actively engaged stood and stared over the treetops southwestward, and the men digging would stop every now and then again to stare at the same direction. The officers... Byfleet was in a tumult, people packing, and a score of hussars, some of them dismounted, some of them on horseback, were hunting them about. 3 or 4 black government wagons with crosses in white circles and an old omnibus, among other vehicles, were being loaded in the village street. There were scores of people, most of them sufficiently sabbatical to have assumed their best clothes. The soldiers realized soldiers were having the greatest difficulty in making them realize the gravity of their position. We saw one shriveled old fellow with a huge box and a score or more of flower pots containing orchids, angrily expostulating with a corporal who would leave them behind. I stopped and gripped his arm. Alright, another pause briefly because expostulating is a I believe it is a synonym for ranting. Yes, it is expressing strong disapproval or disagreement. So expostulating is a very archaic word, archaic form of that word. And then sabbatical, um, let me just a period of paid leave granted to a university teacher or workers for study or travel. So, not sure why sabbatical is used here. So you can look that up later, actually. Oh, sorry, I'm just coughing. I'm burping up. Alright, let's continue onwards. Do you know what's over there? I said, pointing at the trine tops that hid the Martians. Eh? He said, turning. Our explaining these is valuable. Death! I shouted. Death is coming! Death! And leaving him to digest if he could, I hurried on after the artilleryman. At the corner, I looked back. The soldier had left him, and he was still standing by his box, with the pot of orchids on the lid of it, and staring vaguely at the trees, over the trees. No one in Weybridge could tell us where the headquarters were established. The whole place was in such confusion as I had never seen in any town before. Carts, carriages everywhere, the most astonishing miscellany of conveyances and horseflesh. The respectable inhabitants of the place, men in golf and boating costumes, wives prettily dressed, were packing, riverside loafers energetically helping, children excited, and for the most part highly delighted at this astonishing variation of their Sunday experiences. In the midst of it, the worthy vicar was very pluckily holding an early celebration, and his bell was jangling above the excitement. I and the artilleryman, seated on the step of the drinking fountain, made a very passable meal upon what we had brought with us. Patrols of soldiers, here no longer hussars but grenadiers in whites, were warning people to move now or to take refuge in their cellars as soon as the firing began. We saw as we crossed the railway bridge that a growing crowd of people had assembled in and about of the railway station, and the swarming platform was piled with boxes and packages. The ordinary traffic had been stopped, I believe, in order to allow the passage of troops and guns to Chertsey, and I have heard since that a savage struggle occurred for places in the special trains that were put on at a later hour. We remained at Weybridge until midday, and at that hour we found ourselves at the place near Shepperton Lock, where the Wey and Thames join. And I think what this is referring to here is the River Thames. And let me just actually act as a fact check right now. I believe there is also a River Wey as well. Well, I've been to London, so I think I can help identify what is this River Wey. Yep, okay, so this is just basically an intercrossing between the Thames River and the Wey River, which are native to Britain. Let's see. Part of the time we spent helping two old women to pack a little cart. The Wey had a treble mouth, and at this point boats are to be hired, and there was a ferry across the river. On the Shepperton side was an inn with a lawn, and beyond that the tower of Shepperton Church. It had been replaced by a spire, rose above the trees. Here we found an excited and noisy crowd of fugitives. As yet the flight had not grown to a panic, but there were already far more people than all the boats going to and fro could enable to cross. People came panting along under heavy burdens. One husband and wife were even carrying a small outhouse door between them, with some of their household goods piled thereon. One man told us he meant to try and get away from Shepperton Station. There was a lot of shouting, and one man was even jesting. The idea people seemed to have here was that the Martians were simply formidable human beings who might attack and sack the town, to be certainly destroyed in the end. Every now and then people would glance nervously across the way at the meadows towards Chertsey, but everything over there was still. Across the Thames, except just where the boats landed, everything was quiet, in vivid contrast to the Surrey side. The people who landed there from the boats went tramping off down the lane. The big ferry boat had just made a journey. 3 or 4 soldiers stood on the lawn of the inn, staring and jesting at the fugitives without offering help. The inn was closed, as it was now within prohibited hours. "What's that?" cried a boatman. "And shut up, you fool!" said a man near me to a yelping dog. Then the sound came again, this time from the direction of Chertsey. A muffled thud, the sound of a gun. The fighting was beginning. Almost immediately, unseen batteries across the river to our right, unseen because of the trees, took up the chorus, firing heavily one after the other. A woman screamed. Everyone stood arrested by the sudden stir of battle, near us and yet invisible to us. Nothing was to be seen save flat meadows, cows feeding unconcernedly for the most part, and severely pollard willows motionless in the warm sunlight. "The soldiers stop him," said the woman beside me, doubtfully. A haziness rose over the treetops. Then suddenly we saw a rush of smoke far away up the river, a puff of smoke that jerked up into the air and hung, and forthwith the ground heaved underfoot, and a heavy explosion shook the air, smashing 2 or 3 windows in the houses near, and leaving us astonished. "Here they are!" shouted a man in a blue jersey. "Yonder! Do you see them? Yonder!" Quickly, one after the another, 1, 2, 3 of the 4 of the armored Martians appeared, far away over the little trees, across the flat meadows that stretched towards Chertsey, and striding hurriedly across towards the river. Little cowled figures they seemed at first, going with a rolling motion and as fast as flying birds. Then, advancing obliquely towards us, came a 5th. Their armored bodies glittered in the sun as they swept swiftly forward towards the guns, growing rapidly larger as they drew nearer. One on the extreme left, the remotest that is, flourished a huge case high in the air, and the ghostly, terrible heat ray I had already seen on Friday night smoked towards Chertsey and struck the town. At sight of these strange, swift, and terrible creatures, the crowd near the water's edge seemed to me to be for a moment horror-struck. There was no screaming or shouting, but silence. Then a hoarse murmur and a movement of feet splashing off from the water. A man, too frightened to drop the portmanteau he carried on his shoulder, swung round and sent me staggering with a blow from the corner of his burden. A woman thrust at me with her hand and rushed past me. I turned with the rush of the people, but I was not too terrified for thought. The terrible heat wave was in my mind. To get underwater, that was it. "Get underwater!" I shouted, unheeded. I faced about again and rushed towards the approaching marshmen. Rushed right down the gravelly beach and headlong into the water. Others did the same. A boatload of people putting back came leaping out as I rushed past. The stones under my feet were muddy and slippery, and the river was so low that I ran perhaps 20 feet, scarcely waist deep. Then, as the Martian towered overhead, scarcely a couple hundred yards away, I flung myself towards under the surface. The splashes of the people in the boats leaping into the river sounded like thunderclaps in my ears. People were landing hastily on both sides of the river. But the Martian machine took no more notice for the moment of the people running this way than a man of the confusion of ants in a nest against which his foot has kicked. When, half suffocated, I raised my head above the water, the Martian's hood pointed toward the batteries that were still firing across the river, and as it advanced, it swung loose what must have been the generator of the heat ray. In another moment, it was on the bank, and in a stride wading halfway across. The knees of its foremost legs bent at the further bank, and in another moment it had raised itself to its full height again, close to the village of Shepperton. Forthwith the 6 guns which, unknown to anyone on the right bank, had been hidden behind the outskirts of the village, fired simultaneously. The sudden near concussions, the last close upon the first, made my heart jump. The monster was already raising the case, generating the heat ray as the first shell burst 6 yards above the hood. I gave a cry of astonishment. I saw and thought nothing of the other four Martian monsters. My attention was riveted upon the nearer incident. Simultaneously, 2 other shells burst in the air near the body as the hood twisted round in time to receive, but not in time to dodge the 4th shell. The shell burst clean in the face of the thing. The hood bulged, flashed, was whirled off in a dozen tattered fragments of red flesh and glittering metal. "Hit!" shouted I, with something between a scream and a cheer. I heard answering shouts from the people in the water about me. I could have leapt out of the water without momentary exultations. The decapitated colossus reeled like a drunken giant, but it did not fall over. It recovered its balance by a miracle, and no longer heeding in its steps, and with the camera that fired the heat ray now rigidly upheld, it reeled swiftly upon Shepperton. The living intelligence, the Martian within the hood, was slain and splashed to the 4 winds of heaven, and the thing was now but a mere intricate device of metal whirling to destruction. It drove in a straight line, incapable of guidance. It struck the tower of Shepperton Church, smashing it down as the impact of a battering ram might have done, swerved aside, blundered on, and collapsed with tremendous force into the river out of my sight. A violent explosion shook the air, and a spout of water, steam, mud, and shattered metal shot far up into the sky. As the camera of the heat ray hit the water, the latter had immediately flashed into steam. In another moment, a huge wave, like a muddy tidal ball but almost scaldingly hot, came sweeping round the bend upstream. I saw people struggling forwards, and heard their screaming and shouting faintly above the seething roar of the Martian's collapse. For the moment, I heeded nothing of the heat, forgot the patent need of self-preservation. I splashed through the tumultuous water, pushing aside a man in black to do so, until I could see round the bend. 6 deserted boats pitched aimlessly upon the confusion of the waves. The fallen Martian came into sight downstream, lying across the river, and for the most part submerged. Thick clouds of steam were pouring off the wreckage, and through the tumultuously whirling wisp I could see, intermittently and vaguely, the gigantic limbs churning the water and flinging a splash and spray of mud and froth into the air. The tentacles swayed and struck like living arms, and, save for the purposelessness of these movements, it was as if some wounded thing was struggling for its life amid the waves. Enormous quantities of a ruddy brown fluid were spurting up in noisy jets out of the machine. My attention was diverted from this death flurry by a furious yelling, like that of the thing that called a siren in our manufacturing towns. A man, knee-deep near the towing path, shouted inaudibly and pointed. Looking back, I saw the other Martians advancing with gigantic strides down the riverbank from the direction of Chertsey. The shepherded gun spoke this time unavailingly. Well, this is a very long chapter, so I need to get a cup of water. Even the pauses are not helping my throat, actually. Second. There you go. Drink, my guy. Yeah, it's a really long chapter, man. Like, I didn't expect it to be this long. So I gotta pinch my eye. It's like I gotta pinch my forehead, like. Sorry, sometimes it gets really cozy in my room, and that's when I just feel like falling asleep. But I won't do that because. Okay, let's continue. At that, I ducked at once under the water, and holding my breath under the movement was an agony, blundered painfully ahead under the surface as long as I could. The water was in a tumult about me and rapidly growing hotter. When for a moment I raised my head to take breath and throw the hair and water from my eyes, the steam was rising in a whirling white fog that at first hid the Martians altogether. The noise was deafening. Then I saw them, dimly colossal figures of grey magnified by the mist. They had passed by me, and two were snooping over the frothing tumultuous ruins of their comrade. The third and fourth stood beside him in the water, one perhaps 200 yards from me, and the other towards Lillehammer. The generators of the heat rays waved high, and the hissing beams smote down this way and that. The air was full of sound, a deafening and confusing conflict of noises, the clangorous tins of the Martians, the crash of falling houses, and the crackling and roaring of fire. So, okay, let's look up again. Clangorous. Characterized by clicking by or making a continuous loud banging or ringing noise. So it sounds like the sound of a cymbal, basically. It's like a pom 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 noise, like kind of like that actually. So I guess that what it implies here is that the sound of the machines is very clangorous. So it's like the percussion instrument gone really bad. Okay, let's move on. Dense black smoke was leaping up to mingle with the steam from the river, and as the heat ray went to and fro. Hey Adiputra, welcome to the stream. We're just going through chapter 12 right now. And as the heat wave went to and fro over Weybridge, its impact was marked by the flashes of incandescent white, and that gave place at once to a smoky dance of lurid flames. The nearer houses still stood intact, awaiting their fate, shadowy, faint, and pallid in the steam, with the fire behind them going to and fro. For a moment perhaps I stood there, breast high in the escape and the almost boiling water, dumbfounded at my position, hopeless of escape. Through the reek I could see the people who had been with me in the river scrambling out of the water through the reeds, like little frogs hurrying through grass from the advance of a man, or running to and fro in utter dismay on the towing path. For a moment perhaps I stood there. Then suddenly the white flashes of the heat ray came leaping towards me. The houses caved in as they dissolved at its touch and darted out flames. The trees changed to fire with a roar. The ray flickered up and down the towing path, licking off the people who ran this way and that, and came down to the water's edge, not 50 yards from where I stood. It swept across the river to Shepperton, and the water in the track rose in a boiling wheel crested with steam. I turned shorewards. In another moment, the huge wave, well nigh at the boiling point, had rushed upon me. I screamed aloud and scalded, half blinded, agonized. I staggered through the leaping, hissing water towards the shore. Had my foot stumbled, it would have been the end. I fell helplessly, in full sight of the Martians, upon the broad, bare, gravelly spit, in sight of the flew Martians, upon the broad... I expected nothing but death. I have dim memories of the foot of a Martian coming down within a score of yards of my head, driving straight into the loose gravel, whirling it this way and that, and lifting again of the long suspense, and then of the four carrying the debris of their comrade between them, now clear and presentably faint through the veil of smoke, receding intermittently as it seemed to me, across a vast space of river and meadow. And then, very slowly, I realized that by a miracle, I had escaped. Alright, so we're done with chapter 12. Oh my god, that was actually really long. Holy moly. Anyway, welcome Vania Fitri. Thank you for the compliment. Yes, my hat is very... Man, I keep yawning. That's not good for sport. I dance my fingers upon all this. Alright, so now we will take a 5 minutes break. Give me a second. So how's your day, Vania and Adiputra? I see one of you is new to the stream, so I'm a VTuber and I've been reading War of the Worlds quite a bit now. Yeah, this is the main menu music is from Tiberian Sun, as I reiterate, and is done by Flinker Apache. So let's just boil it down to 3 minutes. Once the timer on my phone runs out, we'll go back to reading chapter 13, which is how I fell in with the curate. So far I can tell you for sure that the story is really hitting out very nicely, actually, because as you can see here, artilleryman has gone missing. It seems like one of the tripods is dead, actually. So if we discovered they're not invincible. Oh man, I keep yawning. Shit. Okay, so one of the tripods is not invincible, right? And however, it is offset by the fact that you need artillery to take them down. And during those times, I think artillery had to be manually calibrated, unlike our automatic guidance systems now. So yeah, good luck hitting a tripod that can move around like a crack addicted addict in the alleyway at a Taco Bell. And you can see that the voice acting is slightly improving. However, I'd like to tell you guys that my voice is also slightly painful now. It just happens like at the back of my throat. It's just kind of painful. So for the new guy, needs to sweat to not yawn. I guess so. Yeah. I don't know why. Is it just me or is it just the weather outside? No, it can't be the weather, because outside the weather is actually like it's about to rain. I guess it's to say that I'm still pretty exhausted from yesterday's event. So yeah. Plus today I have a few things going on that I won't be streaming about. I'll be having a impromptu collab with Signet for Arma. So if he goes on Twitch, I'll link his Twitch in the Discord, my personal Discord. I still have not opened it for anyone to join just yet. I just need some more time to self-promote myself and whatnot in order to make sure that, you know, it's nice for everybody to join my Discord. Plus, well, I'm kind of there. People have said I got potential, so I want to make sure that everything goes well. But if any case, those of you in the Discord, I'll post Siggy's link in the Twitch link in the chat, and I'll be playing Arma 3 tonight with him. Hopefully, I want to try super enthusiastic reading for the next chapter. wait, how enthusiastic do you want it to be? Suddenly, are you from the Philippines? No, I'm not from the Philippines, Mr. Vanya. I'm actually Malaysian. Are you from the Philippines? Right back at ya. I got it. I'm quite curious. What super racing is like? Finally, he suffered a great loss, and he died a heroic death. Okay. Alright. Nope. Oh, you're from Brunei. Oh, hello. Welcome from Brunei. I do know a VTuber from there. Her name is Haya. So yes, interesting. Like yes. All right. I'll try this out for the next few minutes for chapter 13. So let's see how this works. Chapter 13. How I fell in with the curate. This is gonna be dumb. After getting this sudden lesson in the power of terrestrial weapons, the Martians retreated to their original position upon Horsell Common. And in their haste and encumbered with the... I can't do this. I can't. I'm so sorry. I just adopted like my Gary's mod voice for some reason. Okay, let's just go back to reading normally. After getting this sudden lesson in the power of terrestrial weapons, the Martians retreated to their original position upon Horsell Commons, and in their haste and encumbered with the debris of their smashed companion, they no doubt overlooked many such a stray and negligible victim as myself. Had they left the comrade and pushed on forthwith, there was nothing at the pounder guns. Yes, back to normal. There was nothing at that time between them and London but batteries of 12-pounder guns, and they would have certainly reached their capital in advance of the tidings of their approach. As sudden, dreadful, and destructive their advent would have been as the earthquake that destroyed Lisbon a century ago. So apparently there was an earthquake in Lisbon. Let me just look this up real quick. I also would like to ask whether you guys are okay with the sudden stop in my reading, and I will just explain to you some certain events that happens within. Let me see. In what is it called? I don't know how you say it. I like to explain a few things that happen in the story, or at least in the writing itself, so that you guys don't miss out what's happening. So the Lisbon earthquake of 1755 happened on November 1st, 1755, as it says, causing serious damage to the portless city of Lisbon and killing an estimated 60,000, like some Whitwoods can. Yeah, and then some historical facts that might not make sense as well, like this one, because earthquake in Lisbon is like, there's an earthquake in London? Huh? So yes. What it means, blah 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 blah. Oh, where's Lisbon? Oh no, Lisbon is Portugal. I thought it was London. Okay, I'm dumb. Anyway, so yeah, it just refers to a historical context from before. So yes. The more you know. Alright, let's go back to reading. No super enthusiastic reading, because I think that would destroy my lungs. But they were in no hurry. Cylinder followed cylinder on its interplanetary flight. Every 24 hours brought them reinforcement. And meanwhile, the military and naval authorities, now alive with the tremendous energy of... I heard a noise. Now fully alive to the tremendous energy of their antagonists, worked with furious energy. Every minute a fresh gun came into position, until, before twilight, every copse, every row of suburban villas on the hilly slopes about Kingston and Richmond masked an expectant black muzzle. Copse. Okay. That's interesting. Copse is a word I've not seen before. A copse is a small group of trees, a thicket. Oh! It smelled like corpse. Huh? That's weird. Yeah, what's even weirder is my burping. Okay, so copse means a small thicket of trees, which is like a group of trees. And so yeah, it just means that artillery guns everywhere now. And through this charred and desolated area, perhaps 20 square miles altogether, that circled the Martian encampment on Horsell Common, through charred and ruined villages among the green trees, through the blackened and smoking arcades that had been but a day ago pine spinneys, crawled the devoted scouts with the heliograph that presently to warn the gunners of the Martian approach. But now the Martians understood our command of artillery and the danger of human proximity, and not a man ventured within a mile of either cylinder, save at the price of his life. It would seem that these giants spent the earlier part of the afternoon in going to and fro, transferring everything from the second and third cylinders, the second at Allerton Golf Links and the third at Pierfoot, to their original pit on Horsell Common. Over that, above the blackened pit, on blackened header and ruined buildings that stretched far and wide, stood one as sentinel, while the rest abandoned their vast fighting machines and descended into the pit. They were hard at work there far into the night, and the towering pillar of dense green smoke that rose therefrom could be seen from the hills about Merrows, and even, it is said, from Banstead and Epsom Downs. And while the Martians behind me were thus preparing for their next sally, and in front of me humanity gathered for the battle, I made my way with infinite pains and labours from the smire and smoke of burning Weybridge towards London. I saw an abandoned boat, very small and remote, drifting downstream, and throwing off most of my sodden clothes, I went after it, gained it, and so escaped out of that destruction. There were no oars in the boat, but I contrived to paddle as well as my parable hands could allow, down the river towards Halliford and Walton, going very tediously and continuously looking behind me, as you may well understand. I followed the river, because I considered that the water gave me my best chance of escape should these giants return. The hot water from the Martian's overthrow drifted downstream with me, so that for the best part of a mile I could see little of either bank. Once, however, I made out a string of black figures hurrying across the meadow from the direction of Weybridge. Halliford, it seemed, was deserted, and several of the houses facing the river were on fire. It was strange to see the place quite tranquil, quite desolate under the hot blue sky, with the smoke and little threads of flames going straight up into the heat of the afternoon. Never before had I seen houses burning without the accompaniment of an disruptive crowd. A little further on, the dry reeds up the bank was smoking and glowing, and a line of fire inland was marching steadily across the late field of hay. For a long time I drifted, so painful and weary was I after the violence I had been through, and so intense the heat upon the water. Then my fears got the better of me again, and I resumed my paddling. The sun scorched my bare back. At last, as the bridge of Walton was coming into sight round the bend, my fever and faintness overcame my fears, and I landed on the Middlesex bank and lay down, deadly sick, amid the long grass. I suppose the time was then about 4 or 5 o'clock. I got up, presently walked perhaps half the mile without meeting a soul, then lay down in the shadow of a hedge. I seem to remember talking, wonderingly, to myself during that large spurt. I was also very thirsty, even I am thirsty right now, and bitterly regretful I had drunk no more water. It was a curious thing that I felt angry with my wife. I cannot account for it, but my impotent desire to reach Leatherhead worried me excessively. I do not remember clearly the arrival of the curate, so that probably I dozed. I became aware of him as a seated figure in a soot-smudged shirt sleeves, and with his upturned, clean-shaven face staring at the faint flickering that danced over the sky. Remember to hydrate. Thank you so much, Akate. We'll hydrate in a bit after this. Thank you, though, for the reminder. The sky was what is called a macro sky. Rows and rows of faint down plumes of cloud, just tainted with the midsummer sunset. I sat up, and at the rustle of my motion, he looked at me quickly. "Have you any water?" I asked abruptly. He shook his head. I have been asking for water for the last hour." For a moment, we were silent, taking stock of each other. I dare say he found me a strange enough figure, naked save for my water-soaked trousers and socks, scalded, and my face and shoulders blackened by the smoke. His face was a fair weakness, his chin retreated, and his hair lay in crisp, almost flaxen curls on his low forehead. His eyes were rather large, pale blue and blankly staring. He spoke abruptly, looking vacantly away from me. "What does it mean?" he said. "What do these things mean?" I stared at him and made no answer. He extended a thin white hand and spoke in an almost complaining tones. "Why are these things permitted? What sins have we done? The morning service was over. I was walking through the roads to clear my brain for the afternoon, and then fire, earthquake, death, as if it was Sodom and Gomorrah." So this is a biblical reference right here. Sodom and Gomorrah are cities that were hit apocalyptically in the Old Testament, and as a very certain, I think Gomorrah, someone was turned to salt. All our work undone, all the work. What are these Martians? What are we? I answered, clearing my throat. He gripped his knees and turned to look at me again. For half the minute, perhaps, he stared silently. "I was walking through the roads to clear my brain," he said, and suddenly, fire, earthquake, death! He relapsed into silence, with his chin now sunken almost to his knees. Presently he began waving his hands. "All the work, all the Sunday schools. What have we done? What has Weybridge done? Everything gone. Everything destroyed. The church! We rebuilt it only 3 years ago. Gone! Swept out of existence! Why? Oh, the cat's here. Another pause, and he broke out again like one demented. The smoke of her burning goeth up forever and ever, he shouted. Okay, give me a second. Hey, you're not allowed in my room. It's reading time. Does not mean you can come in. Give me a second, viewers. I will be right back. As much as I like my animals, I don't like them coming into my room actually. Like the cat in particular, because I told you the story of how it pissed on my bed. Also, moving around does help me wake up a little bit. And give it a reminder though, Agate, I will drink some water. Given how long the chapters are today, I might either extend the stream to at least 2 hours or just keep it at 130 hours. It depends on what happens actually. I want to see how long it takes to cover at least a few chapters, because at least usually my goal will be around 3 to 4 chapters. But now it seems like since we're hitting the middle part of the book, the chapters are getting really long and nice. There's a good plot progression now. So let's start again. His eyes flamed, and he pointed a lean finger in the direction of Weybridge. By this time, I was beginning to take his measure. The tremendous tragedy in which he had been involved, it was evident he was a fugitive from Weybridge, had driven him to the very verge of his reason. "Are we far from Sunbury?" I said, in a matter-of-fact tone. "What are we to do?" he said. "Are these creatures everywhere? Has the earth been given over to them?" "Are we far from Sunbury? Only this morning I officiated an early celebration. Things have changed," I said quietly. "You must keep your head. There is hope. There is still hope." "Hope!" "Yes, plentiful hope for all this destruction." I began to explain my view of our position. He listened at first, but as I went on, the dawning interest in his eyes gave place to their former stare, and his his regard wandered from me. "This must be the beginning of the end," he said, interrupting me. "The end! The great and terrible day of the Lord, when men shall call upon the mountains and the rocks to fall upon them and hide them. Hide them from the face of him that sitteth upon his throne." I began to understand the position. I ceased my labored reasoning, struggled to my feet, and standing over him, laid my hand on his shoulder. "Be a man," said I. "You are scared of your wits. What good is religion if it collapses under calamity? Think of what earthquakes and floods, wars and volcanoes have done before to men. Do you think God had exempted Weybridge? He is not an insurance agent, man." For a time, he sat in blank silence. "But how can we escape?" he asked suddenly. "They are invulnerable. They are pitiless. Neither the one nor perhaps the other," I answered. "And the mightier they are, the more sane and wary we should be. One of them was killed yonder not 3 hours ago." "Killed?" he said, staring about him. "How can God's ministers be killed?" "I saw it happen," I proceeded to tell him. "We have chanced to come in for the thick of it," said I, "and that is all." "What is that flicker in the sky?" he asked abruptly. I told him it was a heliograph signaling, that it was the sign of human help and effort in the sky. "We are in the midst of it," I said, "quiet as it is. That flicker in the sky tells of the gathering storm. Yonder, I take it, are the Martians, and Londonward, where those hills rise about King Richmond and Kingston, and the trees give cover. Earthworks are being thrown up and guns are being placed. Presently the Martians will be coming this way again." And even as I spoke, he sprang to his feet and stopped me by a gesture. "Listen," he said. From beyond the low hills came the dull resonance of distant guns and a remote, weird crying. Then everything was still.
A cock a cockchafer came droning over the hedge and past us. High in the west, a crescent moon hung faint and the pale above the smoke of Weybridge and Shepperton and the hot, still splendor of the sunset. We had better follow this path, I said, northward. Okay, the next chapter will be in London. We're going on for 30 more minutes. So now we're in chapter 14. What is a cockchafer? I'm actually quite curious. What is a cockchafer? Ooh, what is this? Cockchafer. Oh, it's a beetle. Oh, it's a beetle. Hold on, I think I can put up a picture. We're gonna take a 3-minute rest before we go back into the reading. I hope you guys are not too allergic to pictures of insects. Oh, a what shaver? It's called a cockchafer. Cockchafer. It what the hell? This creature looks very cute. I have to, oh my god, look at Barney again. Wait, let me just point it out to you. Real quick, this is a cockchafer. Yes, I'm not kidding you. It's actually called a cockchafer. C-O-C-K, like that cock, like a cockchafer, and then chafer. So let me just check real quick. It's this thing. This is the insect. This is a cockchafer. Look at him. He's a very cute boy. He's a very cute boy. Now, why does he have prominence in H.G. Wells? I have no clue. He looks a very friendly fellow. This, yeah. Let me. Why is it called a cockchafer? I understand Brits all the olden times may be a bit weirder, but why a cockchafer? What? It's just so weird. I like it though. I like this creature. He looks very nice. He doesn't look like a cockroach. He just kind of looks. Man's like no horny allowed. Yes, no horny allowed. Okay, so now we've covered the. Now we're beginning to really find out making X marks on his hands. Yeah. You're right. It is making an X marks on his like. Yes, my time to eat the humans have come. Yes. Alright, let's see. Alright, so at least we now explored the character, the curate, who is what's it called? Gone slightly crazy from slightly crazy from what's going on from the world, and I feel kind of sad for him in this context because I'm pretty sure he worked very hard for the church, and now the church is gone. So yes, he's I guess you can say he suffers from PTSD. Not much in not in the same way as the artilleryman, but this time it's just a little more deranged way of suffering from PTSD. The dog is there. Okay, give me a second. Sorry, I needed to gargle some water to make sure my throat gets hydrated. I think maybe it works, but I had to turn off the noise because it would be way too disgusting for you guys to like hear the noise. Alright, the alarm is stopped. And of this time recording, we are now at. I felt like my chair was gonna break. Also, did I tell you guys the new cabinet's coming in for my room? So it doesn't really matter because now you can actually see the cabinet in my room. Whatever it is. Anyway, let's keep on going with the story. We are now in chapter 14 in London. In London we go, in London we stay. Full of I don't know idiots. I don't want to make fun of London. What am I supposed to say here? Alright. Let me see. So in London, we are in London. My younger brother, My younger brother was in London when the Martians fell at Woking. He was a medical student working for an imminent examination, and he heard nothing of the arrival until Saturday morning. The morning papers of Saturday contained it contained a burp. It contained a loud and annoying burp from a human male reading this from the far future, specifically more than 1,000 years in the future. Maybe not 1,000. So, what's it called? The morning papers on Saturday contained, in addition to lengthy special articles on the planet of Mars, on life in the other planets, and so forth, a brief and vaguely worded telegram, all the more striking for its brevity. The Martians, alarmed by the approach of a crowd, had killed a number of people with a quick-firing gun, so the story ran. The telegram concluded with the words, "Formidable as they seem to be, the Martians have not moved from the pit into which they have fallen, and indeed seem incapable of doing so. Probably this is due to the relative strength of the Earth's gravitational energy." On that last text, the leader writers expanded very comfortingly. Of course, all the students in the Cramer's biology class, to which my brothers went that day, were extremely interested, but there were no signs of any unusual excitement in the streets. The afternoon papers puffed scraps of news under big headlines. They had nothing to tell beyond the movements of troops about the common and the burning of the pie roads between Woking and Weybridge until 8. Then the St. James Gazette, in an extra special edition, announced the bare fact of the interruption of telegraphic communication. This was thought to be due to the falling of burning pine trees across the line. Nothing more of the fighting was known that night, the night on my drive to Leatherhead and back. My brother felt no anxiety about us, as he knew from the description in the papers that the cylinder was a good 2 miles from the house. He made up his mind to run down that night to me, in order, as he says, to see the things before they were killed. He dispatched a telegram, which never reached me, about 4 o'clock, and spent the evening at a music hall. In London, also, on Saturday night, there was a thunderstorm, and my brother reached Waterloo in a cab. On the platform from which the midnight train usually starts, he learned, after some waiting, that an accident prevented trains from reaching Woking that night. The nature of the accident he could not ascertain. Indeed, the railway authorities did not clearly know at the time. There was very little excitement in the station, as the officials, failing to realize that anything further than a breakdown between Byfleet and Woking Junction had occurred, were running the theatre trains which usually pass through Woking, round by Virginia Water or Guildford. They were busy making the necessary arrangements to alter the route of the Southampton and Portsmouth Sunday League excursions. A nocturnal newspaper reporter, mistaking my brothers for the traffic manager, to whom he bears a slight resemblance, waylaid and tried to interview him. Few people, excepting the railway officials, connected the breakdown with the Martians. I have read, in another account of these events, that on Sunday morning all London was electrified by the news from Woking. As a matter of fact, there was nothing just to justify that very extravagant phrase. Plenty of Londoners did not hear the Martians until the panic of Monday morning. Those who did took some time to realize that all that the hastily worded telegrams that in the Sunday papers conveyed. The majority of people in London do not read Sunday papers. Wow, that is freaking sad. The habit of personal security, moreover, is so deeply fixed in the Londoner's mind, and startling intelligence so much a matter of course in the papers, that they can read without any personal tremors. About 7 o'clock last night, the Martians came out of the cylinder, and moving about under an armor of metallic shields, have completely wrecked Woking Station with the adjacent houses, and massacred an entire battalion of the Cardigan Regiment. No details are known. Maxims have been absolutely useless against their armor. The field guns have been disabled by them. The flying hussars have been galloping into Chertsey. The Martians appear to be moving slowly towards Chertsey or Windsor. Great anxiety prevails in West Surrey, and earthworks are being thrown up to check the advance Londonward. That was how the Sunday Sun put it and a clever and remarkable prompt handbook article in the referee compared the fire to a menagerie suddenly let loose in a village. No one in London knew positively of the nature of the armored Martians, and there was still a fixed idea that these monsters might have been sluggish, crawling, creeping painfully. Such expressions occurred in almost all the early reports. None of the telegram could have been written by an eyewitness of their advance. The Sunday papers printed separate editions as further news came to hand, and some even in default of it. But there was practically nothing more to tell people until late in the afternoon, when the authorities gave the press agencies the news in their possession. It was stated that the people of Walton and Weybridge and all that district were pouring along the roads Londonward, and that was all. My brother went to church at the Foundling Hospital in the morning, still in ignorance of what had happened on the previous night. Then he heard allusions made to the invasion and a special prayer for peace. Coming out, he bought a referee. He became alarmed at the news in this and went again to Waterloo Station to find out if communication were restored. The omnibuses, carriages, cyclists, and innumerable people walking in their best clothes seemed scarcely affected by the strange intelligence that the news vendors were disseminating. People were interested, or if alarmed only on account of the local residents. At the station he heard for the first time that the Windsor and Chertsey lines were now interrupted. The reporters told him that several remarkable... see you later, Buddy Putra. Sorry. I'm just reading this. At the station he heard for the first time that the Windsor and Chertsey lines were now interrupted. The porters told him that several remarkable telegrams had been received in the morning from Byfleet and Chertsey stations, but that these had abruptly ceased. My brother could get very little precise detail out of them. There was fighting going on about Weybridge was the extent of the information. The train service was very much disorganized. Quite a number of people who had been expecting friends from places on the southwestern network were standing about the station. One grey-headed... Oh, sorry. My camera seems to have died. One grey-headed old gentleman came and abused the Southwestern Company bitterly to my brother. It once showing up, he said, 1 or 2 trains came in from Richmond, Putney, and Kingston, containing people who had gone out for a day's boating and found the locks closed, and a feeling of panic in the air. A man in blue and white blazer addressed my brother, full of strange tidings. There's horses of people driving into Kingston in traps and carts and things, with boxes of valuables and all that, he said. They come from Moseley and Weybridge and Walton, and they say there's been guns heard at Chertsey, heavy firing, and that mounted soldiers have told them to get off at once because the Martians are coming. We heard guns firing at Hampton Court Station, but we thought it was thunder. What the dickens does it all mean? Martians can't get out of the pits, can they? My brother could not tell him. Afterwards he found that the vague feeling of alarm had spread to the clients of the Underground Railway, and that the Sunday excursionists began to return all over from the southwestern lungs, Barnes, Wimbledon, Richmond Park, Kew, and so forth, and unnaturally early hours. But not a soul had anything more than vague hearsay to tell of, and everyone connected with the terminus seemed ill-tempered. About 5 o'clock, the gathering crowd in the station was immensely excited by the opening of the line of communication, which is almost invariably closed, between the southeastern and southwestern stations. Yeah, my avatar slept for a little bit. Sorry. Yeah, it does it when I go a bit too close to the camera, actually. So I gotta stay a bit further out. And the passage of carriage trucks bearing huge guns and carriages crammed with soldiers. These were the guns that were brought up from Woolwich and Chatham to cover Kingston. There was an exchange of pleasantries. You get eaten! We're the beast teams! And so forth. What am I thinking of? Beast Wars from Transformers for some reason. A little while after that, a squad of police came into the station and began to clear the public off the platforms, and my brother went out into the street again. The church bells were ringing for evensong, and a squad of Salvation Army lasses came singing down Waterloo Road. On the bridge, a number of loafers were watching a curious brown scum that came drifting down the stream in patches. Our eyes are closed. Yeah, it seems to happen when I look at the book. Maybe because I think it's like, if I look at the book and the like the camera and the book at the same time, it's a bit jarring. Maybe I'll just lower it down a little bit. Okay, there you go. There was talk. The sun was just setting, and the clock tower and the houses of Parliament rose against one of the most peaceful skies it is possible to imagine. A sky of gold, barred with long transverse stripes of a reddish purple cloud. There was talk of a floating body. One of the men there, a reservist he said he was, told my brother he had seen the heliograph flickering in the west. In Wellington Street, my brother met a couple of sturdy roughs who had just rushed out of Fleet Street with steel wet papers and staring placards. "Dreadful catastrophes!" they bawled one to the other down Wellington streets. "Fighting at Weybridge! Full description! Repulse of the Martians! London in danger!" Why am I speaking like a Scotsman? He had to give 3 pence for a copy of that paper. It was. Happy Sunday. Hey Shafi, happy Saturday towards you as well. I hope you're doing fine. I'm just reading a bit. Then it was, and then only, that he learned something of the full power and terror of these monsters. He learned that they were not merely a handful of small sluggish creatures, but that they were mind-swaying vast mechanical bodies, and that they could move swiftly and smite with such power that even the mightiest guns could not stand against them. They were described as vast spider-like machines, nearly 100 feet high, capable of the speed of an express train, and able to shoot out a beam of intense heat. Mass batteries, chiefly of field guns, had been planted in the countries about Horsell Common and especially between the Woking district and London. 5 of the machines had been seen moving towards the Thames, and one, by a happy chance, had been destroyed. In the other cases, the shell had missed, and the batteries had been at once annihilated by the heat rays. Heavy losses of soldiers were mentioned, but the tone of the dispatch was optimistic. The Martians had been repulsed. They were not invulnerable. They had retreated to the triangle of cylinders again, in the circle of Mount Woking. Signalers with heliographs were pushing forward upon them from all sides. Red guns were in rapid transit from Windsor, Portsmouth, Aldershot, Woolwich, even from the north. Among others, a long wire of guns of 95 tons from Woolwich. Altogether, 116 were in position or being hastily placed, chiefly covering London. Never before in England had there been such a vast or rapid concentration of military material. Any further cylinders that fell, it was hoped, could be destroyed at once by high explosives, which were being rapidly manufactured and distributed. No doubt, ran the report, the situation was of the strangest and gravest description, but the public was exhorted to avoid and discourage panic. No doubt the Martians were strange and terrible in the extreme, but at the outside there could not be more than 20 of them against our millions. Optimism. The authorities had reason to suppose, from the size of the cylinders, that at the outside there could not be more than 5 in the cylinder, 15 altogether, and one was at least disposed of, perhaps more. The public would be fairly warned of the approach of danger, and elaborate measures were being taken for the protection of the people in the threatened southwestern suburbs. And so, with reiterated assurances of the safety of London and the abilities of the authorities to cope with the difficulty, this quasi-proclamation closed. This was printed in enormous type on paper so fresh it was still wet, and there had been no time to add a word of comment. It was curious, my brother had said, to see how ruthlessly the usual contents of the paper had been hacked and taken out to give this place. All down Wellington Street, people could be seen fluttering out the pink sheets and reading, and the Strand was suddenly noisy with the voices of an army of hawkers following these pioneers. Men came scrambling off buses to the secure copies. Certainly this news excited people intensely, whatever their previous apathy. The shutters of a map shop in the Strand were being taken down, my brother said, and a Sunday in his Sunday raiment, lemon yellow gloves even, was visible inside the window, hastily fastening maps or surveys to the glass. Going on along the Strand to Trafalgar Square, a paper in his hand, my brother saw some of the fugitives from West Surrey. There was a man with his wife and 2 boys, and some articles of furniture in a cart, such as greengrocers use. He was driving from the course of Westminster Bridge, and close behind him came a hay wagon with 5 or 6 respectable-looking people in it, and some boxes and bundles. The faces of these people were haggard, and their entire appearance contrasted conspicuously with the Sabbath best appearance of the people on the omnibuses. People in fashionable clothing peeped at them out of cabs. They stopped at the square as if undecided which way they should take, and finally turned eastward along the Strand. Somewhere behind these came a man in workday clothes, riding one of those old-fashioned tricycles with a small front wheel. He was dirty and white in the face. My brother turned down towards Victoria and met a number of such people. He had a vague idea that he might see something of me. He noticed an unusual number of police regulating the traffic. Some of the refugees were exchanging news with the people on the omnibuses. One was professing to have seen the Martians. Boilers on stilts, I tell you, striding along like men. Most of them were excited and animated by their strange experience. Beyond Victoria, the public houses were doing a lively trade with these arrivals. At all the street corners, groups of people were reading papers, talking excitedly, or staring at these unusual Sunday visitors. They seemed to increase as night drew on, until at last the roads, my brother said, were like Epsom High Street on a Derby Day. What is a Derby Day? Let me just check out real quick what's a Derby Day. Derby Day sounds like Crash Bandicoot Day for some reason. What is a Derby Day? Derby Day generally refers to any sporting events featuring a pair of sports teams engaged in a rivalry. Ah, so it's just like football. Oh. Football. Not the biggest fan of football, but it's in the story. Okay, let me just take a look. My brother addressed several of these fugitives and got unsatisfactory answers from most. None of them could tell him any news of Woking except one man, who assured him that Woking had been entirely destroyed on the previous night. I come from Byfleet, he said. A man on a bicycle came through the place in the early morning and ran from door to door, warning us to come away. Then came soldiers. We went out to look, and there was clouds of smoke to the south, nothing but smoke, and not a soul coming that way. Then we heard the guns at Chertsey, and folks coming from Weybridge, so I locked up my house and come on. At the time, there was a strong feeling in the streets that the authorities were to blame for the incapacity to dispose of the invaders without all this inconvenience. About 8 o'clock, the noise of heavy firing was distinctly audible all over the south of London. My brother could not hear it for the traffic in the main thoroughfares, but by striking through the quiet back streets to the river, he was able to distinguish it quite plainly. He walked from Westminster to his apartments near Regent's Park about 10. He was now very anxious on my account, and disturbed at the evident magnitude of the trouble. His mind was inclined to run, even as mine had run on Sunday, on military details. He thought of all those silent, expectant guns, of the suddenly nomadic countryside. He tried to imagine boilers on stilts, 100 feet high. We all do as well. There were 1 or 2 cartloads of refugees passing along Oxford Street, and several in the Marylebone Road. But so slowly was the news spreading that Regent Street and Portland Place, blaming not the international invaders. Oh yeah, this definitely sounds familiar, doesn't it? Places were full of the usual Sunday night promenaders, albeit they talked in groups. And along the edge of Regent's Park, there were as many silent couples walking out together under the scattered gas lamps as ever there had been. The night was warm and still, and a little oppressive. The sound of guns continued intermittently, and after midnight there seems to be sheet lightning in the south. He read and reread the paper, fearing the worst had happened to me. He was restless, and after supper prowled out again aimlessly. Let's take a look. I think today we can just stop here in this chapter, actually. He was restless, okay? And he returned and tried in vain to divert his attention to his examination notes. He went to bed a little after midnight, and was awakened from lurid dreams in the small hours of Monday by the sound of door knockers, feet running in the street, distant drumming, and a clamor of bells. Red reflections danced on the ceiling. For a moment he lay astonished, wondering whether day had come or the world gone mad. Then he jumped out of bed and ran to the window. His room was an attic, wow. And as he thrust his head out, up and down the street there were a dozen echoes to the noise of his window sash, and heads in every kind of night disarray appeared. Inquiries were being shouted. "They are coming!" bawled the policeman, hammering at the door. Like this. "The Martians are coming!" And he hurried to the next door. The sound of drumming and trumpeting came from the Albany Street barracks, and every church within earshot was hard at work killing sleep with a vehemently disorderly toxin. Toxin. What is toxin? This is not like this is not Toxin. Toxin, which is toxin. This is toxin. What is toxin? Toxin is an alarm bell. Yeah, you can definitely tell this is okay, so toxin is a word for alarm bell, so there you go. Interesting, is it? And let me just see. Up the street, there was a noise of doors opening, and window after window in the houses opposite flashed from darkness into yellow illuminations. Up the street came galloping a closed carriage, bursting abruptly into noise at the corner, rising to a clattering climax under the window, and dying away slowly in the distance. Close on the rear of this came a couple of cabs, forerunners of a long procession of flying vehicles, going for the most part to top farm stations, where the northwestern special trains were loading up, instead of coming down the gradient into west. For a long time my brother stared out of the window in blank astonishment, watching the policeman hammering at door after door, and delivering the incomprehensible message. Then the door behind him opened, and a man who lodged across the landing came in, dressed only in shirt, trousers, and slippers, his braces loose about his waist, his hair disordered from his pillow. "What the devil is it?" he asked. "A fire? What a devil of a row!" They both craned their heads out the window, straining to hear what the policemen were shouting. People were coming out of the side streets and standing in groups at the corners talking. "What the devil is this all about?" said my brother's fellow lodger. My brother answered him vaguely and began to dress, running with each garment to the window in order to miss nothing of the growing excitement. And presently men selling unnaturally early newspapers came bawling into the streets. "London in danger of suffocation! The Kingston and Richmond Defence Force! Fearful massacres in the Thames Valley!" And all about him, in the rooms below, in the houses on each side across the road, and behind, in the park terraces, and in the hundreds other streets that were of the part of Marylebone and the Westbourne Park District and St. Pancras, not St. Pancras, and Westwood and Northwood, in Kilburn and St. John's Wood and Hampstead, and eastward in Shoreditch and Highbury and Haggerston and Hoxton, and indeed through all the vastness of London from Ealing to East Ham, people were rubbing their eyes and opening windows to stare and ask aimless questions, and dressing hastily as the first breath of the coming storm of fear blew through the streets. It was the dawn of the great planet. I imagine this is what the indigenous felt when the Britain invaded them. "Hey, Donut Ranger, you caught us a bit of a bad time because we're about to end the stream because I think there's a very long chapters. But I guess you can say that this is an analogy, analogy for what Wells thought was Britain doing to indigenous populations, because he was a part of the I'll explain this a bit more as the stream ends, okay? Unable from his window to learn of wait, hold on. It was at the dawn. It was the dawn of the Great Panic. London, which had gone to bed on Sunday night, oblivious and inert, was awakened in the small. Stopping by. Hey, sorry. Was awakened in the small hours of Monday morning to a vivid sense of danger. Unable from his window to learn what was happening, my brother went down and out into the street, just as the sky between the parapets of the houses grew pink with the early dawn. The flying people on foot and in vehicles grew more numerous every moment. Black smoke! He heard people crying, and again. Black smoke! The contagion of such an unanimous fear was inevitable. As my brother hesitated on the doorstep, he saw another news vendor approaching him, and got a paper forthwith. The man was running away with the rest, and selling his papers for a shilling each as he ran, a grotesque mingling of profit and panic. And from this paper, my brother read that catastrophic dispatch from the commander-in-chief. The Martians are able to discharge enormous clouds of a black and poisonous vapor by means of rockets. They have smothered our batteries, destroyed Richmond, Kingston, and Wimbledon, and are advancing slowly towards London, destroying everything on the way. It is impossible to stop them. There is no safety from the black smoke but in instant flight. That was all, but it was enough. The whole population of the great 6 million city was stirring, slipping, running. Presently it would be pouring en masse northward. Black smoke! The black voices cried. Fire! The bells of a neighboring church made a jangling tumult. A cart carelessly driven smashed amid shrieks and curses against the water tower up the street. Sickly yellow light went to and fro in the houses, and some of the passing cabs flaunted unextinguished lamps. And overhead the dawn was growing brighter, clear and steady and calm. He heard footsteps running to and fro in the rooms, up and down stairs behind him. His landlady came to the door, loosely wrapped in dressing gown and shawl. Her husband followed, ejaculating. As my brother began to realize the import of all these things, he turned hastily to his own room, put all his available money, some £10 together, into his pockets, and went out again into the streets. Alright, what had happened in Surrey is the next chapter, but I guess we will stop here because it is a very long day actually. So as you can see here, we are now introduced to the Martians' flying machines. Now this is very interesting, and Donut and Ranger brought up a point about how this is how the indigenous people felt when Britain invaded them in colonial territories, because this is what H.G. Wells spoke of from personal experience. Now if I look up right here, today it concludes the reading for today, but I want to answer some things that got brought up. Let me just think. Okay, so H.G. Wells had a very critical opinion of British imperialism and saw it as the downtrodden of rights. Yes. So let me just see. There was a massacre at Amritsar in 1990 in Wales, and concluded that the incident was an example of the failures of the British imperial system. So this was after World War One, but it does really explain his reasonings and his reasonings for his writing for the book. Okay, my brain is not working. Let me just see. I think he had a military contingent overseas. But yes, yeah, it does make sense that he would criticize it. And let me just see here. Let me just see here's a personal life. Before that, I would like to, while I was looking up, I would like to address the fact that we have now encountered flying machines, which for this time is very interesting because how do you say it already, right? Flying machines at this time were not really thought of. I think the Wright brothers were only just starting their first prototypes, but not widely used until the not widely used until the First World War in the form of attack planes and whatnot. Donut Ranger, you know. So how do you say flying machines at this time were also described as being very angular in shape, very V-shaped, and surprisingly, it actually matches up with a modern-day equivalent, a stealth bomber. So the Martians had stealth bombers and weird machines. So having all this described in the 1800s is incredibly foretelling and strange and really freaking cool. Because if Wells can predict a stealth bomber, we can predict anything else, really. And the black smoke is the first example of true biological warfare. Years before the usage of chlorine gas will come into play in World War One, and the black smoke here seems to occupy that same niche as chlorine gas. So it's very interesting knowing all this on a more military perspective. My brain is not working. Sorry. Let me just see what's going on here. So I hope the new chapter is interesting because now it's no longer on the narrator, but it's actually on his brother in London, and now London is under attack. So let me just see here. War of the Worlds. Oh, so it turns out War of the Worlds was also seemingly what's it called? So not War of the Worlds. He is also seemingly socialist. How interesting. Alright, now I'm gonna look up at GSTO article. This is gonna be a short excerpt. I wanna self-indulge in a little bit. So let's see. I'm just gonna read this out, and then after I'm gonna put a stop to the stream, and then explain a bit more what's happening next week. Because next week I think I can come back. London Bridge is falling down. Yes, it does. To the black smoke. Imperialist romance spawned by expansion of the British. Oh wow, this article is I mean, the criticism of imperialism can actually be the idea of imperialism literature in Britain was actually criticized by H.G. Wells in not only this book, because the Martians are quite clearly Britons but as technologically advanced aliens instead, but the Time Machine also had the two races, the Eloi and the Eloi and the what is it already? The Eloi and what is it called already? I don't remember already. The Eloi and the other race. I don't remember what the other race is called. So the Time Machine describes this dislike of imperialist literature and imperialism as a whole by separating the future humanity into two races. One of which is the more erotic, helpless nature of natives in the territories that Britain has conquered. And then the other one is on the sheer brutality of some of the countries that Britain has conquered. So it's a criticism of both ends in literature, and just a saying that we could end up like this as well. And as the other race, brutish as it is, has enslaved the more Oriental race. And yes, I guess if that makes sense, it's just him juxtaposing all his criticisms. Oh, hiya, Commanding Pikachu. Oh yeah, welcome to the stream. Unfortunately, we're ending already in a little bit. I was just explaining about H.G. Wells and his criticisms of imperialism. As I can clearly tell, quite clearly tell from the War in the Worlds, it's just pretty much the viewpoint of a future of alien race attacking London. That is just quite clearly Britain doing the same thing to another country in the world. And the sentiment kind of spreads here because we are a don't worry, Communist Speaker. You can watch the VOD and then hear the reading, or you can just find it online on copy. But I just like to read because it's like doing an audiobook. So what I can tell you is that we as a country, Malaysia is has slightly influenced H.G. Wells because we were part of the countries in Southeast Asia that was under their colonial rule. So it's no surprise that when I read this story, I think all of you can kind of realize, if you did your Sejarah work, you can kind of see how the tenets of War of the Worlds and our criticisms of colonialism kind of play into the themes of War of the Worlds and understanding it. So it's a nice fiction. Anyway, to catch you up, Communist Pikachu, we are done with 3 chapters today. We have covered the meeting with the curate, the taking down of the first one tripod, and the attack London by flying machines, which suspiciously look like B-2 stealth bombers in the present day. And we look like we're poised to discover what happens to Surrey in the next stream, which will happen in 2 weeks' time. Hopefully I can get to work by then already. So yes, what had happened in Surrey. So today, interesting things have been discussed. The topic of PTSD was briefly touched upon by H.G. Wells, is in the character of the curate who goes completely insane, and narrator's naked. I don't know why I pointed that out. And there's a perspective change in this book, which is quite interesting, which is now from the place of the narrator's brother in London, as it covers how London is mostly deaf to the news of the incoming invaders, and ends up being taken aback by the flying machines. And for that time, you can kind of tell how screwed Britain is, because at that time they had no flying machines. Britain had no flying machines. The world had no flying machines, except maybe hot air balloons, but hot air balloons don't really do much. And at that time, the machines had rockets. Yeah, imagine the technological disparity of that. And they come from another planet too, in the heat rays. Don't even forget about that. So after that, yeah, there's not much I can cover after that. I hope you guys had fun listening to War of the Worlds. I'm sorry if I sound a little off kilter. Yeah. Airships. Wait, did they have airships already? Hold on. I actually need to research. I did need to research already. Airships. Airships. Let me see. And a dirigible. Yes. Did they have airships already? The first ones were made from when? Was it the first ones? First ones were drawn up by 1850. So when does it actually happen? Most likely, yeah. The early pioneers were in the 17th to 18th century. The 19th century. My German blimp. Oh, the high German blimp. I don't remember the name of that one already. They had weaponized ones. Yeah, the Hindenburg, yes. But I don't think though. Yeah, the weaponized ones. I see. But at the time, I think at the time of writing from the Hindenburg. So by the time of writing of War of the Worlds, I don't think the airships had been running on one what was blowing. Oh yeah, I definitely remember that one. Yeah, we're talking about Battlefield 1 again. So yes, I actually do like to say that at this time of writing, airships were not made into combat ready forms. Not bombers, no equipment on that. They're mostly used for passenger carrying and whatnot. And at that time, like from 1888 to 1897, they're still experimenting with the ideas of airships. So there you go. They had no air power. Britain is screwed. There are no AA guns. There's no need for an AA gun. And now the Martians had rocket guns. Who dies? Everyone dies. Okay, so I'd like to say thank you all for coming to the stream and participating in my reading stream. Let me see what else. Next week, right? I'll try and free out my time for a few more games. Hopefully by then I don't know what's going on. MCU is just going to continue on and indefinitely. So in that case, I'm probably just going to go back to my normal stream schedules. And for next week, do see some new games, I guess. You're going to see some new games. So one game that I might try, the one game I might try is River City Girls, later Alligator, and a few other things I want to try. River City Girls will probably be a campaign game through, like Modern Warfare 2 Remastered, and I'll decide whether I want to play a special strategy game. I'll ask on the Discord later. If you guys are in the Discord, I will open that up soon on here. I will try a special player versus player strategy game, and I'm sure you guys will enjoy it, because it not only is it like chess, it is a nostalgic kind of chess from Japan. So other than that, next week also be a writing stream. Plus, I might want to try another review stream. But I will see how the review stream works out. I also want to know what animal I want to review as well. So hold on, let me just turn off the music. Give me a second. Alright, so with that, thank you everybody for coming to my stream. And yeah, I guess you can say that that's pretty much it. I'll come up with the schedule tomorrow, and it might change. It might be tentative for now, but hopefully I will still be able to stream next week. Usually it'll be at night now. I won't be in the afternoon. If I'm working next week, I'll let you guys know immediately on Twitter so you guys can adjust your schedules to mine. And I understand that you guys also got work. Okay, so other than that, there's nothing else I have on my mind. Thank you all for coming, and have a good afternoon. Have a good Saturday rest. I'm probably gonna go take a nap. I got something to do tonight as well, and I'll put the Twitch link up. I'll be on my Twitter. You can follow me. Wait, you can follow me on my Twitter. What is my Twitter already? At ch_Eiten Dylus. You can follow me on my Twitter for frequent updates, and you'll see if I'm on someone else's stream that is that I'm not streaming at some time. So tonight I'll be playing Armor 3 with Siggy, and I think he'll be streaming it, so I'll just retweet his Twitch link. Okay, so with that, yes, there's nothing much I can have to say. Hope you guys enjoyed the reading stream, and bye bye.